Thank you, Senator Moody. I guess to start, maybe each of you, when we go to the pharmacy and we have a choice between a generic drug and a brand name drug, are they exactly, we're taking the exact same drug? If each of you could respond.
Yeah, generics typically do not follow the same production process. The excipients can be different, and there's a range of bioavailability that's allowed even upon approval. So generics do go through an approval process that is somewhat rigorous and includes in vitro testing on a small number of individuals, but it's a lot less than the original drug. And that's at approval. And then I think what I'm have researched most and thought about is after approval, when the manufacturing facility's been operating for years under light regulation, how things go, how consistent compliance. But no, it's not the same excipients necessarily. It's not the same process. And there's a range of availability.
I agree that they're not the same. However, they should behave the same in the body. So when I talk to my family, I myself, I have no problem taking a generic. I will tell you that if the label shows where it's made, I will opt for domestically manufactured or quote unquote friendshore manufacturing because I'm not sure the quality of where the product is made. However, I don't think there's any issue with generic equivalency. There are, as Dr. Gray mentioned, a battery of tests that are done to make sure that it behaves in the body the exact same way as a brand name product does.
Embedded in your question is, are they the same drug? And what do we mean by drug? On the one hand, a drug can be the molecule, the active ingredient that causes the positive effects in the body that we're after in the healthcare system. But we also use the word drug to mean the drug product. That is the active ingredient plus all of the extra things we added in to make the tablet hold together and to preserve it, the excipients, as Dr. Gray described. So there may be differences in the excipients and other things. Think about it when you are baking cookies. Each cook has their own recipe, their secret ingredient in making their cookies, and they may be a little bit different. They may all taste similar. They may all be chocolate chip cookies, but there are slight differences across them. But they all have they have chocolate chips in them, and they are chocolate chip cookies. So the molecule, I think, is essentially the same in almost all cases. The other things you add into it may differ, and some of those may have an effect positively or negatively on the health of a patient. And our current process of inspecting and evaluating equivalency of products doesn't take into account all of those other things perhaps as well as it should.
And thank you for the question, Chairman. For myself, I don't have any problem taking generics. These two are the pharmacists, so I, would very interested in, glad that they shared their perspective. I think the most stark difference between a branded drug and a generic drug isn't the chemical properties themselves or the drug, but it's the supply chain, the robustness of the supply chain. A branded drug has every incentive to have redundancy, extra manufacturing capacity, backup plans, buffer stock. They take all these steps to make sure they avoid shortages, whereas generic supply chains are very lean. If there's a disruption in the supply chain, frequently that leads to patient issues and issues with patient care being impacted. So I think that's the most stark difference.
Dr. Gray, would you don't care with a generic or branded drug?
At the moment, I don't take any drugs, but I would generally take a generic drug if prescribed, but would try to investigate where it's from. And again, some of my family do, and ProPublica's RX Inspector, which came out just a month ago, allows you to find out where the finished dosage form of your drug is made easily, unlike the Daily Med approach. So I would certainly investigate. I do pay more for brand over-the-counter drugs. I wouldn't take a generic eye drop. It kind of depends on what it is, right? If it's going directly into the bloodstream or the eyes or a tablet. So.
Okay, Dr. Ganio, so do pharmacists know where the active ingredients of the drugs are made, and if so, do they tell their customers?
No, in general, the pharmacist would not know where the active pharmaceutical ingredient is from. It's possible to research and find that, and there's nothing on a prescription label that would tell the patient. I've never been asked as a pharmacist where the API was from by anyone that I've dispensed the medication to.
Can I just say I've asked my pharmacist, and they look at me like I have two heads, so.
Oh, no, I ask them every time.
Yeah, okay.
So I've done enough ads, they all know who I am. So, and I've told them about our hearings, so they now expect it. So they actually have more information now than before. Mr. Koval, why is supply chain mapping important to country of origin labeling?
Well, a few different reasons. Supply chain mapping would be important because you want to identify if there's redundancy in the supply chain or if there's concentration. If there's concentration, that can cause issues, for example, from a natural disaster or any sort of disruption. So being able to identify where there's diversification versus concentration, and also just identifying vulnerabilities. There's different problems, like I mentioned earlier, different problems that we need to assess. So if you're thinking about national security issues or geopolitical risks, then obviously mapping the supply chain to determine where drugs that are heavily reliant on more adversarial countries are coming from is important.
Dr. Schaldemeier, what country of origin labeling, would country of origin labeling encourage investment in U.S. pharmaceutical manufacturing?
Would it encourage what?
U.S. manufacturing.
I think it will provide some encouragement for U.S. and for nearshoring manufacturing in Canada, perhaps Mexico or our neighbors in Latin America may be encouraged. Issues that come to play, one reason why China and India have become dominant is because they had lower environmental regulations, lower labor laws, and lower pay, and many other restrictions are eliminated in those countries, and the companies take advantage of that and make it, and they also have an economy of scale larger than the U.S. or the Western Hemisphere. And so I think we can overcome those, though, and with advanced manufacturing that is being developed in the U.S., they can make products leaner and greener. And I think we could get to a point where we could compete in the U.S. And in our nearshore neighbors. And recall, Puerto Rico used to be a hotbed of production. It has declined over time, but I think that could be reinvigorated along with other neighboring entities.